What's up, guys? And today we're going to be going over a theme deck. I'm starting this new series. If this is the first time you're watching, basically I'm going to go over a Pokemon TCGO theme deck and tell you how good it is in the theme deck format. If you don't know, on Pokemon Online, there's a format specifically designated to theme decks. And in this series, I will be telling you how good a specific theme deck is. The first theme deck we're going to be going over in this series is personally one that I think is the best one right now, at least. That's Dark Hammer. Dark Hammer is a fighting dark theme deck with the main two Pokemon being Machamp, as you can see here, and let me get to him, Pangoro, as you can see here. Now, I will be going over these Pokemon and telling you why I think this is the best theme deck at the moment. We will be going over the Pokemon, the trainers, and the energy lineup. Let's start with the Pokemon. First off, we have Scraggy. Not that great of a Pokemon. You really don't want to use him combat-wise. The only thing you might want to do is have him on your bench, and I'll get to that later. But as far as Scraggy and Scrafty go, they're not that good. They're just not. So, starting with Scraggy, 2 energy for 30 is okay. It's not terrible, but it's just, there's not much of a payoff there, especially with his evolution being Scrafty, which is a stage 1 with 90 HP. Not awful, but 2 energy for 30 for a stage 1's awful for his double colorless, and this double dark machine gun headbutt has the potential to do 150, which will KO anything in the format. However, flip 3 coins, this attack does 50 damage times the number of heads, and this Pokemon is now confused. So, regardless of if you flip 3 coins or 0, you're going to confuse yourself, which is awful. Confusion is one of the worst status conditions you can have. And this attack just has the potential to do 0 damage, and you never want to waste a turn in this format doing 0 damage. So, really you don't want to use this guy. He's probably actually the worst Pokemon in the deck. So, he's not, like, awful. He's just not good at all. So, let's move on. Machamp, 1 for 10, whatever. 70 for a basic Pokemon is pretty nice, though. You're really not going to ever want to attack with him. He does have 2 retreat costs, which is kind of high. And the Psychic weakness can be a problem, especially when facing Lunala decks, but moving on to his evolution, we have Machoke. So, stage 1 for 90, that's decent, like I said earlier. 2 for 40 is actually really good in this format. Again, 2 retreat cost, Psychic weakness, meh. But 2 for 40, that's not bad. But you are going to want to use this guy because his final evolution is probably the best Pokemon in the deck. Machamp, for a stage 2, he has 150 HP. Now, that's really nice. That's towards the top end of HP you're going to see in this format. His ability, Fighting Fury, says each of your fighting Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. That's great. That's an all-out buff for your fighting type Pokemon. It's really, really good. Even if this guy's not inactive, just sitting on the bench, he's buffing half the Pokemon in this deck. So, and his attack, 3 for 80, 3 fighting energy for 80 damage, is actually 3 for 100 because Fighting Fury affects him too. So, 3 fighting energy for 100 in this format's pretty good. And during your opponent's next turn, any damage done by attacks from the defending Pokemon is reduced by 40. This is situational at best. A lot of the times they're just going to switch out, or you're going to knock them out. So it's not going to make that big of a difference. But, you know, if you do have a 2-hit KO and your opponent doesn't have the resources to switch, this will be helpful. So moving on, we have Landorus. This guy is just good. He's an amazing Pokemon to start with. If he's in your opening hand, 9 times out of the 10, you're going to want to start with him unless you have a Pancham. So, Shout of Power, 1 for 20 is decent. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. This is a really good attack mid to late game, especially if you've Sycamored. and you've thrown cards into the discard. So, again, he's a basic. He does have 120 HP, which is very nice for a basic. Water weakness, it's different in this deck. Most of your stuff is weak to either psychic or fighting, so water is a pretty common type in theme deck format though, so you've got to be careful with this guy. He does have a 1 retreat cost, which is very nice, and his second attack, 2 fighting energy and 1 colorless for 90 damage. I really wish that this was 1 fighting energy and 2 colorless. That way you could save your fighting energy for your Machamps and your Hariyamas. But either way, for a basic Pokemon, dealing 90 damage off 3 energies is really good. That's 110 if you have a Machamp on your bench. So, really good Pokemon overall. Really good start, really good mid-game, really good late game. The only problem is there's only 1 of them in here. So, moving on. Mingfu. Okay, this is a great Pokemon. So, Mingfu himself is a basic Pokemon with 60 HP. It's pretty average. His attacks aren't great. Not anything to write home about. But what you're going to want to do is evolve him. Because Mingxiao is one of the best Pokemon in this deck. And there are a lot of good Pokemon in this deck. So, he's a stage 1 with 90 HP. That's pretty average. 1 retreat cost. That's good. Psychic weakness. Meh. The first attack is what you want to pay attention to. Return this Pokemon and all cards attached to it to your hand. This is Acerola before Acerola was printed. First off, 1 energy for 40 damage is really good in this format. It's really good. That's 60 if you have Machamp on your bench. So, dealing 60 for 1 energy is phenomenal. Also, Mingxiao is a perfect pivot. If your opponent has a big Pokemon out, and you know that you're not going to be able to OHKO them, but they have the potential to 2-shot you, so you don't want to send like your Machamp out there to trade blows and your Machamp get taken down before it can hit the last blow. Sending out Mingxiao to get 40 or 60 chip damage off and then sending out your sweeper to clean them up is amazing. It is very hard to combat Mingxiao because, I mean, realistically, it can get set up in 1 turn. So after you aerial turn it back to your hand, you play Mingfu the next turn, and then the turn after that, you put a fighting energy on it, and then Mingxiao, and you're ready again. It literally takes 1 turn of setup, and you're golden. This thing is annoying as hell to deal with. But if you're using it, it's fucking awesome. So let's move on. Makuhita. Now, I really like this one. It's probably not the best, but it's still good. So, Makuhita is a basic Pokemon with 80 HP. That's a fat boy right there. He can take some hits. 1 fighting energy deals 10. Common. 1 fighting energy and 2 colorless energy deals 40. I like that it's colorless, because that means you can save those fighting energies for your Machamp. Because Machamp is the most energy-driven Pokemon in this deck. 3 fighting energy have to be reserved for him. So, being able to jump 2 darkness energy on this guy and saving those fighting energy for later is great. But really, and he does have a 3 retreat cost, really high. You do not want to start with him if you can avoid it, because you will get stuck in the active. And psychic weakness. But let's move on to his evolution, Hariyama. Now this Pokemon can kind of just shut down certain decks. Let's read him. He's a stage 1 with 120 HP. Again, these are some big boys. You know, they can take hits. His ability is Thick Fat. Any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's fire or water Pokemon is reduced by 30. That means he basically has a 30 damage resistance to fire and water Pokemon. That is crazy good. Theme decks, a lot of theme decks run fire and water. Like, a majority of them have either fire or water in them. So this is really, really good. Had to plug my computer in there. Anyway, really, really good ability. Awesome. His attack, 1 fighting energy and 2 colorless for 80. That's pretty good. In this format, that's really good. Again, not having to dump a bunch of fighting energy into this guy is super helpful. That weakness is kind of meh. Again, there's a lot of stuff in the format that hits for super effective. And that retreat cost, you're never going to pay that. So, the top half of the card's good. Once you get to the bottom half, it's a little bit worse. But it's still a really good card. And, like I said earlier, it can just shut certain decks down. So it's a nice card to pivot into. Moving on to Hitmonlee. Another good fighting type Pokemon. Hitmonlee is probably the optimal start. Like, the optimal Pokemon to start out with. A basic Pokemon with 90 HP, so he can take a lot of damage for a basic. His first move is probably what you're going to use most. 1 fighting energy to deal 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This is really good for sniping early game. You can take out your opponent's basic Pokemon before they even get a chance to get their evolutions out. And then, if you're still in the active and you cleared your opponent's bench off, go ahead and throw another fighting energy on him. Let him do a little damage to your opponent's last Pokemon. Hitmonlee has won me games that I probably should have lost, just because I've stopped my opponent from setting up early. It's crazy what 30 damage to your opponent's bench can do over time, and how fast your opponent can go from an advantage to a disadvantage if they can't answer this Pokemon immediately. Again, weakness to Psychic Energy, but a 1 retreat cost is really good, because if, say you stretch Kit 3 times, and you have a Hariyama set up on your bench, you're ready to switch out and start beating down the active, you just remove the energy that you were using to stretch kick, you're good. Very fluid Pokemon, very good pivot. It's a very good Pokemon to start out with. Probably one of the better ones in here. Again, I know I keep saying that, but they're all good. Moving on, Lickitung. Lickitung is awful. I'm just gonna say that. Its attack's awful. It's got a huge retreat cost. Lickitung's terrible. However, its evolution's pretty good. Licky is a stage 1 with 120 HP, so very good. Its attack costs are kind of high, but at the same time, they're colorless, so you can use any kind of energy for them. His first attack is really cool. 3 colorless energy for knockoff, deals 50 damage, and discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Just disruption. It's a really good move. A little bit costly, but if you have extra energy to spare, just throw some on Licky. And his last move is Licky Chop, which has a lot of potential. So for 4 energy, it's pretty pricey, you deal 60 damage. However, you flip a coin until you get tails, and you deal 30 more for each heads. That's pretty good. Realistically, that's a pretty good move. The majority of the time, you're probably going to get around 90 damage off, which isn't bad in this format for 4 energy, but you do have the potential to do 60, and you have the potential to do infinite, honestly, if you're, insanely lucky with your coin flips. It's a good backup plan. I would never, if you have like a Machamp, or a Hariyama, or a Pangoro on the bench, I would never load Licky up first, unless your opponent resists your Machamp, or whatever you have. It's a good backup plan, but it should never be your first go-to plan. So, moving on, we have Pancham. So, the Pancham Pangorolon in this deck are really good, but it took me a minute to figure out how good they were. So, Scrafty is probably only good for activating Pancham's Bad Influence evolution. If you start out with Pancham, you always want to throw Pancham in your active. If you have a dark Pokemon in your hand, so Scrafty, or if you have a Pangoro in your hand. So, what Bad Influence Evolution does is, if you have a dark Pokemon on your bench, search your deck for your Pangoro and put it onto this Pokemon. It counts as evolving. So, if you go second, on your first turn, you can evolve Panjam with this attack and have a Pangoro out first turn. It's ridiculous. And it leads to a donk. Now, if you don't know what a donk is, it's where you beat your opponent first or second turn, depending on, depending on if you go first or second. His third attack, or second attack, you're never going to use it, ever. You are always specifically using this to get up to Pangoro. Psychic weakness, 1 retreat cost, pretty basic. Now let's move on to the big boy himself, Pangoro. Pangoro is a stage 1 with 120 HP, and his first attack might be his best, because it enables donks. So his first attack says, Clobber for 1 darkness and 1 colorless. It does 30. You may discard an item card from your hand. If you do, this attack does 40 more damage. So, some of you have already put it together, but if it's your first, I guess it would technically be your second turn. If it's your second turn, and your opponent only has a basic on their side of the field, and you have an item in your hand, and you have Pangoro out, you win. Because 9 times out of the 10, their basic is going to have up to 70 HP. So, if you have an item in your hand you can discard, you can actually take them out of the game before they get to do anything. Because if they don't have a bench Pokemon, and you take their only basic Pokemon out, game over. So Clobber can end games very, very quickly. However, if that falls through, Pangoro has a very good second attack. For 1 darkness energy and 2 colorless energy, Hammer Arm does 80 and discard the top card of your opponent's deck. This can wear your opponent's resources down pretty damn quickly, especially because of how fast people go through their decks in this format. You have Sycamores, you have Howls or Tiernos, you have all kinds of things that get energies like Professor's Letter and stuff. So most people will fly through their deck, and if you Hammer Arm them 4 or 5 times, that's 5 cards. 5 cards may not sound like a lot, but that's a lot of stuff that they're either missing out on, or they're getting very close to milling themselves out with. So Pangoro is a very good Pokemon. He does have a fighting weakness, which in my experience is better than the psychic weakness, but still not great. He also has a psychic resistance. So, while a majority of your Pokemon will struggle with psychic type Pokemon, Pangoro will actually do very well against the psychic type deck, especially Lunala builds, because they have a dark weakness. So, Pangoro can just kind of run through the Lunala theme deck very easily. And I believe that is it for the Pokemon lineup. Let's move on to trainers. Now, there are 12 trainers in this deck, starting with roller skates. You have 2 of these, and if you have Pangoro, I suggest not using these. That way you can discard them, because half the time they do nothing when you use them. Yes, if you flip heads, you draw 3. If you don't have Pangoro out, I would always use them. Just try and draw 3. However, they are most of the time always better for getting early damage in with Pangoro. So moving on, we have Professor's Letter. This card's amazing. It's just 2 energy in your hand. It's great in this format. It's energy fixing. If you only have darkness energy and you have Machamp on the bench, Professor's Letter. Now you have fighting energy. Energy Switch is okay. Again, even if you don't want to use it, like if you don't have anything to use it with, you do have Pangoro that can get extra damage by discarding it, so there's that. Eva Soda is important. There are a lot of evolution cards in this deck, and Eva Soda does a great job of supporting them. Going through your deck and placing an evolution card directly onto a Pokemon is powerful. It's a very good card. Very good. Professor Sycamore, I don't feel I need to tell you guys how good this card is. Discard your hand, draw 7. It's amazing. Yeah. Karina is the best card in this deck. Hands down, because it sets your plays up. So, say you have a Machop, yeah. Say you have a Machop, and that's all you have. Karina, with Karina, it says search your deck for a fighting Pokemon and an item card. That's a very good combination of things. Because if you just have a Machop, you can go through your deck for a Machoke and an Evosoda. Play the Machoke on the Machop, and next turn you can Evosoda out your Machamp, and it basically gets you Machamp. So, really good. If you already have Machoke, or if you have, say, a Makuhita, and you need your Hariyama, or if you need Landers to recur your graveyard energies, or if you just want that Manchow, you can go get that Pokemon, and then go get a Professor's Letter with this, so you can Energy Fix. I mean, this card is the playmaker in this deck. The only bad part is, there's only 2 in the deck. If there were more, it's just such a consistency card. This makes this deck run as well as it does. Without Karina, I guarantee I would not think this deck is as good as it is. But Karina just makes it run so well, and it is a godsend to have this card in your hand first turn. Because whatever basic you have in play, unless it's Pancham or Scrafty, this card is going to immediately get you to that last stage. So, this is the card you want to look out for when you're playing. Moving on, we have Pokemon Center Lady, a hugely underrated card. Healing 60 damage in all special conditions from a Pokemon is crazy good in this format. We have shit like Salazzle running around. And we have things that do 60 damage off 1 energy or 2 energies running around. This can save you. If you get picked up against a Salazzle from the, what is it, the Hydreigon theme deck, and it burns and poisons you, or no, it poisons you, and the poison deals 40 damage every turn. Well, Pokemon Center Lady, you heal the poison and the damage it just dealt you, and then you have a chance to actually kill it without it killing you. So, Pokemon Center Lady is really good in this format. I know in regular constructed it's not as good, but it's a really good card in this format. It's not always optimal, because sometimes you do want the Karina over most of the time, you want the Karina over this card. But this can get you out of that situation of giving up a prize card. So, underrated card, it's really good. And that's all the trainers. The energy lineup is very simple. 12 fighting, 6 dark. It's a pretty good energy lineup as far as theme decks go. All in all, if I had to give this deck a rating, I would probably give it an A-. And I say that in the theme deck sense. Again, I know compared to constructed, this deck is awful, but in the theme deck format, this deck really puts in a lot of work. It's very quick. You can get threats on the table very, very quick. It has energy fixing. It has Karina, which, for all intents and purposes, searches the entire deck, basically. It has cycling with Sycamore. It deals a lot of damage early on. It has an Anthem Pokemon in Machamp. It has energy recursion and Landorus. It's just a good deck. I can show you guys the deck box it comes in. Here are the sleeves I have it in, which I need to change. And the coin. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you like this. I hope I got you into this. I hope you go and check out the theme deck format, because it's very, very fun. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your favorite theme deck is. Tell me if you like this series. I will keep doing it. I like these videos. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. And if you want to battle on this PTCGO, hit me up. I'm always down to play a game of Pokemon with you guys. Thanks. Until next time.